Hello, good day. Once again, welcome to Elephant in the Room. How are you all doing? Another Monday, another week. Taranjeet, how are you?
Very well, Muyan. Extremely well. Yes, you're right. Another Monday, and another Monday brings with it a recap session. It's been
Correct.
an exciting. It's been such an exciting journey, Muyan, and I'm enjoying every moment of this. I must say.
Cool. So for those who just tune in, we hope that you can actually drop a quick comment to tell us where you are watching this from. And for those who are working today, if you are stuck in the rush hour, you can actually tune this in to sit back, relax, don't fight the jam, don't get mad. We can have a quick discussion, and also, of course, you can't comment then, but you can always listen to it. As Taranjeet say, we got a good show coming up this evening. We wanted to do a quick recap of what has happened last week, especially with all our guests, because I think we had a very insightful time as well as sharing with them per se. Maybe I'll just quickly just do the recap tab so that here we go.
Sure. So we had the opportunity, whilst Muyan is doing that, we had the opportunity to cover a variety of areas, especially from a graduands perspective. Before that, if you remember, we were looking at it from a region, looking at where the regional boys were coming from and girls, and we had people calling in all the way from Egypt to India to Indonesia, and finally we ended up in Australia, out in Melbourne. And there were some very interesting thoughts that were coming out about how SMEs and businesses were looking at this. And we then felt, Muhan and I then felt it would be great to hear perspectives from those who were directly impacted by this, not only the COVID-19, but also the slowdown as a whole. And what better way of looking at this than by the graduating students themselves of 2020? And that's what has led to today's discussion, where we're going to compare and contrast the different perspectives that the different graduating students brought to the table, and finally we'll end with how an individual employer is looking at this disruption that has taken place. So to start it off, we'll have Elizabeth Lee and Ng Yi Xian. Elizabeth is a business and an econometrics student out from Monash Sunway, and Yi Xian is a psychology student out from UNIMAS Sarawak. And we had their session on the 13th of May, and this was for those who are keen to look back and just track this. This is episode 23. Muihan?
So yes, so wanted to actually talk about both Xian and Elizabeth, and we wanted to give maybe some background for those who didn't manage to catch that session. We'll be sharing the link to the replay, you can rewatch it in the comments section after the show. Don't worry about that. So we started out to say that we wanted to talk to fresh graduates or students that are going to graduate this year. And there was, of course, a discussion between both of us to say that, hey, do I know enough young people that maybe they want to come onto the show? To a certain extent, I do, because I do a lot of undergraduate programs along the different universities in Malaysia. And I was thinking who to actually to bring on. But I thought maybe this will be a good opportunity to actually crowdsource it. So we actually ran a quote-unquote competition to actually ask individual undergraduates, as long as you are final year, you can actually apply for this process. And of course, this seems to be quite daunting. To be honest, we only had like 8 applications. And of the 8 applications, more than, I think, half was ladies. So the girl power. All the girls are amazing. And of course, these 2 girls turned out to be most outstanding in nature. And true enough, as you saw them on air last week, they were really, really spirited, as well as very confident in their own rights. Yes, so we hope that. And with that also, we had a different plan to the show, because usually we will get our professional experts, guests to come and share insights with us and our audience. But in this show, we actually got the audience to play the professional role or the expert role in that sense. And my goodness, you guys really didn't disappoint. Thank you so much. We should want to acknowledge a few people in a short while, but you guys really gave the two girls a really, really good insights. And all these insights are very useful for the rest of the fresh graduates as well, because more than ever, they are actually going through a very different time, and they need to actually navigate this different time with all the knowledge, all the experience, and all the white hair, if I may, possible. Okay. So before I just go into that, quick one, no hair for Taranjeet. Thank you very much for those who just tuned in. Today we are doing a recap show of what we happened last week with all our guests. Let me do a quick shout out. First, we have Surjit from Perth. Thank you for tuning in. I think it's dinner time in Perth, but thanks for tuning in. And our good Dr. Mike, hi. Also, my good friend Ted Moy. Okay, it's really a beautiful Monday. Nice to see you. Good brother KJ Ko, thanks for tuning in again. And our good supporter, hi, Mr. Zorab Tong. All right, thanks for being here. So coming back quickly to the two girls, I think one of the most insightful thing that I got from the session in that sense is the whole idea of opportunities and flexibility as young graduates, and how they can actually differently look at different ideas and also opportunities. So I think the girls gave quite a bit of fair questions. Some are related to their field, but at the same time, they also ask broader questions of whether should they work abroad, or how do they connect with their new colleagues in a virtual culture, or how do they understand organization cultures and things like that. And with that, maybe just allow me to do the next one. Wanted to acknowledge all these good comments that came from all the individuals. We are so blessed to have all of you. Let me just put it up big, right? So from Niven to Mian to Zorab, to Bernard, Engbeng, Cindy, Michael. So thank you for all your wonderful, wonderful suggestion. And I think our young graduates really appreciate all these pointers to that. Maybe I got one more slide just to pick quick one. All right. Yes. Okay. So these are the few that I managed to single out. But of course, I think we have other folks like Damiri and all also contributed. Thank you so much for your inputs. Maybe just want to pick your brains, Taranjeet. Maybe what struck you most during that session?
Sure. And thanks for that, Muihan. First thing, the thing that really struck me was the level of enthusiasm and interactiveness that the audience had. They did not fail us. We asked for support, we asked for help, and lo and behold, they came in on board, not once, but several of them. And they based their feedback on personal experiences, which, to be fair, is absolutely crucial. It's not hypothesis, it's not what I think, but it's what I've actually experienced and done. A couple of takeaways for me was quite clearly from those discussions that we had, you also now see, interestingly enough, there were opportunities that came out of this for the two young ladies. You've got one of them being offered a potential internship with a psychology outfit, and the other one I understand is from a consulting outfit, if I'm not mistaken, Muihan.
So wanted to say, maybe
yes.
just sorry to interject, because I think nobody released this. So one of the girls told me, even before the show started, just before the show started, one of our associates from the Big Four actually reached out to her to actually talk about potential internship. And this got to deal with just watching the introduction of herself the day before. So we were so over-exhilarated when I heard that, because that's exactly what we wanted to do, and we achieved that significantly. Of course, whether do they get the
Absolutely.
job or don't get the job, that's a future discussion. But really, it managed to actually caught the eyes of recruiters and hiring managers, which was amazing. Yeah, sorry, you
Absolutely.
were saying.
No worries. So my last point here was the opportunity for them to express themselves. So we find that there is an inherent concern, quite rightly so, given this whole uncertainty and unsettling thought process that is currently playing out. And this inherent concern is quite prevalent given the post discussions that we received from students thereafter. So it was good to see that the points raised were valuable. And for me, that is absolutely crucial because we are hitting the so-called elephant in the room. I'm going to stop there. Muihan?
Okay, so are we going to review something else that we're going to do differently this Wednesday, maybe after the next piece, which is very related to the graduands, but I won't steal the light first. I'll get... So the following day, we actually had a very two special guests this time, and all the way from Central Asia. We had the pleasure of hosting both Laura Vaigorova and Meiram Zhardeyev. Sorry mispronouncing their names, all right? All the way from Astana, Kazakhstan, all right? And yeah, and I think maybe Taranjeet, you want to give some insights from
Sure,
what we
sure.
got from our two good friends.
Sure. So the first insight is it is difficult to pronounce Russian names. So that's the first insight that I got when I was there as well. But on another note, closer to home, I think the first one for me was the definite desire to want to do things differently. Although they were and they are graduating students, but we understood that their business ventures started when they were in the second year of their program. So having foresight, having fortitude, and having that hunger for me was absolutely a key takeaway here. The other one was the tenacity to get into something that they had absolutely no experience in doing. Meiram made it very clear during his conversation that he did not have a clue about the legalities that were involved. He wouldn't have a clue about how to set up a company. Yet they did it. They persevered. They saw the opportunity, and that opportunity was there. It was not as if it was out of the blues. They were already being solicited for help by their family and friends, by people who they didn't know. And next thing you know, they capitalized on that. So that was the second thing that came up, the tenacity that they had. The third thing that came up for me quite emphatically was the fact that they're now employers in their own right. At that young age, they're now employing, if I remember correctly, about 15 to 20 retired teachers or tutors in this regard, with about 40 to 45 students, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
Now,
all right.
that in itself makes a huge impact on how these young people are now creating livelihoods for older folks, the older generation. And that for me is absolutely amazing. The tenacity, but they also stated that we were learning a lot, they still are, about who can work with them and who can't, and who was there only for the shorter term. For something like this, it is a long term, and I think they are also becoming very aware that not everybody has the type of spirit nor the goodwill that they are bringing to the table. So this is a learning for me that, and we are currently experiencing it as business people ourselves. And it's amazing to see how they are experiencing it at that young age. Wihan?
So I wanted to also actually suggest that one of the great insights or reflection I did when listening to both of them, both Laura and Meiram, was the fact that you actually don't know what's going to happen in the next 6, 12, 18 months ahead. And in fact, nobody planned for such a situation, and nobody foresaw this to happen. And in their case, because they took the opportunity or took the risk or took the chance to do something when they were still in university. So when it comes to this season, actually looks like they are much more sheltered compared to many of their other friends who may be desperately seeking employment in that sense. And that's kudos and a good learning curve for all of us, you know. So there's this whole philosophy of side hustling. Should you partake in side hustle when you're studying or even when you're working? And I think most of the time is don't go into it because of the money, because I think the money, while it's nice and important, but more so goes to it to build different skill set and provide you with greater variety of repertoire of skills and opportunities in case you need to utilize it. And I think for both Laura and Meiram, that's the one that happened for them. You know, she could have a master's degree in public administration, but because she harp on the language skills, which is also her core, then she got this opportunity to actually now become a center to focus on teaching languages, which is very crucial, especially in that part of the world for those who want to actually pursue their further degrees to maybe the more established European countries or even to the Northern American states. All right, so that is one that we really stuck with me. And of course, last Friday, like you rightly alluded, we had a great opportunity to host Nina Yassin. So Nina is the director of human capital from Equity Nasional Berhad. So under Equinas, as the short form is, they have about 15 investee companies. So National Equity Berhad is a national private equity owned by the Ministry of Finance. And they actually employed altogether in the portfolio up to I think 17,000 employees in that sense. So we got her to actually come in to actually share with us how as a employer dealing with the current situation in Malaysia, especially since most of these investicos or investee companies are the larger tier SMEs in that sense. And I think Nina said something which I remember very strongly was those which have established themselves in terms of structure and technology are able to mitigate this curve faster and easier in that sense. So, and because of the investment of a private equity as well, I think the management of their investee companies have a greater support. So she can just imagine for those companies out there who don't have such structure and support, and probably that's why most of them are also struggling because of that. So I think that was one great insight which I got, especially in terms of the Investico. How about yourself, Taranjeet?
Sure, and that's very interesting, because the thing that I took away was the fact that, and Nina pointed this out, that the whole COVID situation, although it exacerbated it, it is not the fundamental result for disruption. And we need to be very clear with that. Disruption in her mind, and I totally agree with this, it resonates with me. Disruption has been ongoing. It has been ongoing for the last 10 years, if not longer. But the question is, because we were so comforted and sheltered in our respective areas, we thought about this, we saw it pass, and they said, look, it's not going to impact us, let's just move along with what we are comfortable with. And now all of a sudden, within a span of 12 weeks, the first quarter of the year, this thing had taken shape, and within a week there was a lockdown. Actually, it happened within 3 days from the time we thought about it to the time it actually happened. Immediately, you see those that were ahead of the curve, those companies that were ahead of the curve were able to, I won't say seamlessly, but with some level of ease. It was a little bit easier for them than those companies that did not even think about these sort of things to begin with, because they were so comforted. And that's the, sorry, say again?
No, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So my going in here is twofold. One, the fact that disruption was already playing out. And the second one was, how can we now be a bit more progressive, given the fact that we're entering into a post-MCO environment, which we are now. We still have entities where individuals are still working from home, at least half the staff strand. The other half, the staff strand, is coming to work. But we need to be mindful. It's not the same. And she mentioned it. It will never be the same. It will never, ever be the same. So the question now comes in is, what can we as practitioners, what can we as advisors, people who are in the seats of power, what can you now do to help this balancing between the work and the personal space that these individuals were obviously playing in earlier, which has now merged into one? Muihan?
So I think that was a very interesting point of view, because I also been getting a lot of feedback from clients, from business associates, that even you see it on all my LinkedIn posts, I think on all my LinkedIn feed, that many people are actually stating that, working from home, I work harder, because besides the family requirements and the kids are at home, and we can just empathize for all those mothers, especially with young children. I think all of them sometimes feel a bit guilty. There's a sense of guilt that they don't actually give attention to their children, especially in
And
this.
dad, and dad,
and that.
and dad. Yeah, man, come on.
I was trying to be politically correct, but and that's. As well as I think the requirements of, because you are at home and you are looking at the screen, technically we can schedule back-to-back meetings one after another, even to the minute of it, compared to a physical environment. If let's say you move from one meeting room to another meeting room, you still got like a breather time, But in a virtual sense, if you're not careful, and you are one of those who are workaholics, I would say, you can actually do 10, 12 hours non-stop just on video conferencing. And we have new research to show, I think Associate just shared with me this morning, to say that why Zoom meetings or why video conferencing meetings are so taxing in nature, because we need to spend additional focus to actually read all the non-verbal cues that is non-present compared to a face-to-face meeting. So I think that she highlighted properly. If you are not careful, the leader's not careful, you can actually burn the team out very, very fast. And I think we can see it after 2 months of being in a work-from-home situation or a lockdown situation. I think the last one that I wanted to actually talk about from what she shared was, I think if I remember correctly, Zorab asked this question about what skill sets in moving forward or competencies, and she highlighted the need to have authentic leadership. Okay, and I think this becomes spot on and to the point, because in this case now, when we communicate over the screen, actually it gets harder, and because you don't read the other non-verbal cues, or you read less of it, if you are not careful and don't portray a sincere form, that get magnified tremendously in that sense, right? So I truly believe that authentic leadership is very, very critical in that sense. Okay, cool. We have actually come to almost end of time. We got about 5 more minutes, but this is where we wanted to talk about 2 things. One is what is going to happen tomorrow. You want to maybe just share that with our audience?
Sure. So tomorrow is going to be interesting. But before I do that, just to add on to Muihan's point, I think there's also the issue of how do we engage people in a virtual environment. Sitting in front of a room as we are conducting our sessions, it's a lot easier because I can see you move, I can see you fidget. Whereas if I'm sitting behind a screen or behind a video cam, it becomes that much more difficult. How do I ensure that you actually are listening and engaged, versus me wanting to go out there and look at the latest sales on Lazada? It happens. It is happening. The question is, what can we now do to ensure that we have full buy-in from these individuals? And this is where I think the next elephant in the room will be ensuring that leadership, yes, telecommuting, remote working, working from home, absolutely. But how can we ensure that those leadership uh, functionalities are there to ensure that this two-way communication actually takes place? So I'm going to stop it at that. Moving forward, tomorrow we have an installment, the third installment of our insights to corporate restructuring and change management. If you remember, we started out several weeks ago about what do we think about pre the restructuring process. And the last discussion was the first of several discussions around what do we now need to do about during the restructuring process. And if you remember, we talked about linking the strategic thought process with the area around operating model. This coming session, which is tomorrow, is now to take the operating model to the area of structure. And what does that now mean for us as an organization and as business owners? And that's what's going to be happening tomorrow. I also see there have been some new additions to our participant base. Muihan, you may want to do a shout out.
Yes. We left at Zorab just now. So we have Call Mehinder from Ipoh. Hi. Mallory, nice to see you. Okay, thank you for tuning in. CJ, yes, hi. So I wanted to just flash this comment out by Zorab. I think he reaffirmed that to say that virtual meetings now need more focus and energy because the involvement is harder. And this one, we take it for granted until we go through this for continuously the last 2 months. No, before that, we also do virtual meetings, but it doesn't click into our mind that it actually take more focus or more involvement or more participation and to really make it work. All right. So I think that is something coming to. One good advice from Dr. Heng was to say that graduates also look at creating businesses and coordinate it from home. Entrepreneurship, yes. And I think I would strongly suggest to most young graduates, undergraduates, you should embark on it in that sense to actually look at what you can do with it, because there's a lot of learning from entrepreneurship. And I got to emphasize this again, it's not about the money. Because if you start with that notion, then actually you get derailed very easily and also get disappointed very fast. But the whole idea of engagement with your potential clients, convincing them, sell them, all these are critical skills that even if you don't make it in the business world, it is so critical skill set that the employment world will need it, and you would have a major advantage if you indulge it from early on. Okay, and of course we have Ranjit again from Malacca. Thanks for tuning in, Ranjit. Okay, so that is tomorrow. We will talk about restructuring and change management part 3. Wednesday and Thursday is where I wanted to say just now we preluded. So when we experimented with both Xian and Elizabeth, we actually felt it was a very successful experiment, and we thank all of you for it. And we also want to see how we wanted to impact a different group of people. So this coming Wednesday, we will bring in a young professional. So we have moved the bar from undergrad or graduating to a person that is in the workforce for 2 years, okay, or less than 2 years. So these are new people, also either equally challenged or equally, if I can use the word, confused. And most of us, to be fair, early on in our career, we are very confused, right? To actually then repeat the process. So again, we invite all of you to come in to give advice to our young friend on Wednesday. But the context is she's already working for 2 years, but she also needs a lot of guidance and support. So we're going to repeat the process what we did last Wednesday, but this time is with a working adult. And hopefully on Thursday, we have not confirmed that, but on Thursday, we get another guy in with a similar matter. So in that sense. So with that, we are very happy to have all of you to join us again over the next few days, all right? Parting words from you, Taranjeet?
I enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed the recap, just listening to these young graduates coming out into the market. It reminded me of the old days, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, wanting to make a difference. But the fundamental issue here is the world has significantly changed. But or has it? And that's a interesting point. Has it changed that drastically, or has the environment moved in such that we now have to adapt ourselves? So this is certainly something which is close to my heart. uh, the way we manage talent is now going to be impacted, the way we recruit people is going to be impacted, and the way we advise our clients is going to be certainly impacted. So yeah, thank you very much. Great session today. I really enjoyed the recap. Good list of comments and observations by very key individuals that have been supporting us for these
Yep.
last couple of sessions ever since we started. So thank you very much for that. Nothing else from me.
Okay, so thank you. Have a good rest. And for those breaking your fast, selamat berbuka puasa. It's going to be Raya soon, in a few days' time, so fast. So with that, we see you again tomorrow at 6 p.m. Bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.